All right, this is a special episode. I interviewed one of my students, but he's also one of my best friends growing up, and he has such an incredible story. He was making amazing money, basically working a 9-to-5 job, making someone else rich. He was making like $200,000 a year, and then he actually got fired from his job, and then he started his Amazon business in May of 2019. And then within a span of 8 to 9 months, he was actually able to build a $100,000 per month in revenue Amazon store. So in this interview, we basically separated everything into 3 different parts. Part number 1 is for me to make an introduction of who he is, where he came from, his story a little bit. Part 2 is where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the tactical stuff on Amazon. How did he find his first product? How much money did he put into his business? So on and so forth. And then the third part is where I answer some of the questions that you had submitted to me on Instagram. If you want to basically follow me behind the scenes and submit these questions to me, make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'll put it right here so you can follow me. And this is an amazing episode. I had so much fun interviewing one of my best friends. And sit back, relax. I think you guys are going to get a lot of value from this episode. Sweet. All right, guys. So if you're watching this, listening to this, just a very quick introduction of what we're going to be talking about today. I have a guest here, not just any guest, one of my best friends since childhood, growing up. So the reason why he's here today is because Dan has done something absolutely incredible. He's built
I've put up with Tom for all these years.
That too, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how he built a $100,000 per month Amazon store, that's USD, in less than about 8 months, I would say, in 8 to 9 months.
Yeah.
And we're really just gonna pick his brain on how he was able to do that, because that's very, very fast growth. So the first segment of this interview is gonna be more about Dan's story, because he has an incredible story, and I think it's very relatable to a lot of people. So I wanna get him to share that first. Then we're gonna jump into the more tactical stuff, the stuff that he did to rank his product, pick his product. What are some advice I can give to people that are maybe starting up with their Amazon journey? And then at the end, we're actually gonna be answering some of your questions. Yesterday I made a post on Instagram and a bunch of questions came in. They were absolutely great questions. So I wanna be able to spend a little bit of time answering some of the questions. So having said that, strap yourselves in, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, because things are about to go down. What is going on, Mr. Dan Kogan?
Life's good, Tommy.
All right.
It's good, yeah. Enjoying my life right now.
Awesome. So Dan, for those who don't know who you are, why don't you just give everybody a quick, 1-2 minute spiel about what's your story? Like, where, we've known each other for a little bit. We went to the same high school. What happened after high school? And maybe kind of talk to us about from there, like what happened after high school?
For sure. So my parents are immigrants. They pushed academics down my throat, much like yours. And so I thought that was the only path to take. So obviously I went to university, and much like your story, I got kicked out of university, and then I went to college. I got kicked out of SFU, and then I went to Langara. I moved out of my house when I was 19, and I realized that going to school didn't pay my rent. So I was financially independent from a very young age. My parents said, if you're not going to school, we're not paying for your life. Which, thinking back, was pretty savage. But what that taught me was that there's no handouts in life. So I had a bunch of different jobs. I worked valet, I worked for Sears, I worked back in the day with you at Sport Check. Just lots.
What else? Valet.
I had so many
now
jobs.
It starts training memories, right?
I had so many.
What else? Promos.
I did
you
tons
did promo
of
jobs.
Promos. I worked for a radio station,
Yeah.
Sonic 104.9 when it first launched.
Yeah.
I just had a bunch of different jobs.
You were working, and they're all at the same time. You had like 3 or 4 jobs at the same time.
It was a hustle.
So how much money were you making at the time?
None.
No, you must have made some money.
Sure, yeah.
$4 grand a month.
Yeah, I was probably making $4 or $5 grand a month.
That's crazy at 19.
Yeah, it was
right.
It was pretty. Yeah.
I thought Dan was like the richest, because we weren't making anything. We were like going to school. I didn't have any money. This guy's like, yo, I made $1,000 today. I was like, what? Like this guy's, I'm doing something wrong here. I need to do what Dan's doing.
For sure. Yeah. At the time, it was a lot of money, but after I paid my rent, I paid for my car, I paid for all my bills, there was nothing left.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was I started a little side hustle, and I started selling like fake hats online. So I would buy them on Alibaba, just super cheap, like snapback hats.
Yeah, like Supreme, whatever, like
Yeah,
logo.
whatever it was. Yeah. And I would post them on Craigslist. I would do little trade shows at my local college. I'd set up a desk. I'd have a bunch of hats out, and that was some nice cash. That was my first taste of entrepreneurism. And
Entrepreneurs.
exactly, right? No, but it was a side hustle, right?
Yeah.
and it was, right? So I was literally selling hats out of the trunk of my car.
Yeah.
And
I remember those. I was selling watches during the time. We had like a little
I remember that
thing going on.
Yeah.
And you started selling sunglasses too.
Sunglasses,
You expanded your product line.
I thought I was gonna be rich, man.
Yeah.
At that time, I made it.
Yeah.
I made it, fam.
This is all cash too. You're like making $300 a day, cash.
Yeah.
Hopefully CRA is not listening to this.
Exactly, right? So
his name's Dan Kogan, lives on 888 Homer.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, so I was doing that, and then I realized that it just wasn't enough. I just wasn't making enough money. So a family friend of mine, of my family, he hired me to sell advertising, much like you, in a phone book. See, you used to work for a company, you sold online advertising for a phone book company. I actually sold advertising into physical phone books. So I would drive around and I would try to sell advertising to these different businesses who, like, you convince someone to spend money on phone book advertising, right?
Yeah.
So that taught me a lot about sales, about dedication, about commitment.
Rejection.
It was
How long did you do that job for?
I did it for about a year and a bit.
Wow. How many no's would you get before you get one yes? Roughly the ratio, like 100 to 1, like 200 to 1.
I would sit in my car for hours and make phone calls out of the existing phone book to businesses that were advertising in that phone book, and try to sell them the similar advertising in a new phone book that was being released. And the full cold call. And I would say I would get maybe one yes to every 50 calls, if that.
That's an appointment.
That was an appointment.
Right.
That was an appointment.
That's not a sale yet.
Not a sale.
That's yes, you can come. I'm interested in listening to what you have to say.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough.
I think sales is literally the best job. Like when I have kids, they're gonna go knocking on doors to sell whatever.
For sure.
Seriously, because that builds character.
Discipline,
rejection, and the fact that you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
It's invaluable. So.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. It's understanding that, nothing's going to be handed to you in life, and that you need to work for everything that you earn.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you got into advertising. I assume you're like, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
A neighbor of my parents was working in the car industry, and I ran into him one day and we were chatting, and he said, hey, come in for an interview. So I went in and I got hired at a car dealership, and that was kind of the rest of the story in my car industry days, because I started making great money.
When was this? Like 2000?
This was 2012,
13?
Yeah, it was probably like 2012. Yeah, it was
around
2012.
Yeah.
So I got hired at the car dealership, and I made a lot of money. In my first 9 months, I almost made $100K.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then, I started to think, where am I going to go from here? I don't want to sell cars for the rest of my life. I don't want, and it's tedious, right? You're on call all the time. And if you get a call, like, you're dropping absolutely everything for it, because that's how you're going to get your paycheck.
Right.
So it was a little unpredictable in that sense, and it was hard. So I wanted to move into management. And I got an opportunity to move into management at a different dealership, so I left that job. I moved into a different position. It was like an assistant sales manager type position at a small dealership. And I was actually making less money doing that than I was selling cars. So I started looking and seeing what else was out there. And I got hired by a luxury car dealership on the North Shore. And that was just a gift, right? I was 23 years old, and I got hired by a luxury car dealership, guaranteed 6-figure salary. Great job, nice big office. I was the man. I felt like the man, right? I'm living in Yaletown. I've got my own place. I'm driving a brand new luxury car, and life's good, right? Life is really good. And I did that for 5 years. And then I moved up a little bit. I got a little bit of a semi-promotion in that position. And meanwhile, you were building your empire and dropping hints and pulling me and trying to get me into Amazon. And I was just too comfortable. And then I got fired. Right? And then I got fired. Yeah, I got fired from my job. Yeah. And that's really the kick that I needed.
Right.
To when I hit rock bottom.
Right.
That's the kick that I needed.
Right.
To
wake up. It was
wake up.
Yeah. You were snoozing for a long time.
I was snoozing.
And then you got woken up. So.
Definitely.
And this is back in what? When did you get fired from your job? Like March, right? May. Okay.
End of May.
Right. End of May. So end of May 2019. So right now in January 2020, when you guys are hearing this, yeah. So yeah. I mean, I've known Dan, like I said, since high school. The first day I was wearing a Whistler Blackcomb shirt.
Yeah.
I'll never forget because I used to snowboard a lot, and he came up to me. He's like, "Whoa. Do you ski or snowboard?" I'm like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like, but anyway, we became good friends, and yeah, I've always been like the side hustler. Like I've always had like so many different types of side hustles. Nothing really worked, but I always knew that something was gonna work. But I was very open-minded to new opportunities. And then when I first started Amazon, I'm like, Dan, like I'm starting Amazon and this and that. It's like making sales, but like. It's just comfortable, like making
Absolutely.
Great money, good lifestyle, got everything you need. But one thing that pissed me off a lot is whenever you say, I don't need that much money, because I know if anyone is hungry for coins, for some mola, it was you, right?
For sure.
And then it was just like, and I was like, Dan.
That was comfort talking. It was comfort and fear.
Well, you were telling yourself that to make yourself more comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So that you don't have to, you're giving yourself the permission to be like, hey, you don't need that much money. But inside of you, I knew, I was like, this guy was.
It was an excuse.
Yeah, it was an excuse.
It was, I was excusing myself from stepping out of my comfort zone by trying to make myself believe that I didn't need any more.
Right, exactly. But the contrary of that, it's the fact that I know like you're the type of guy that's just like, let's get some money, let's do it. So you got fired from your job, and then I remember you telling me like, hey, like I want to try Amazon, like can you attend? I had a course during that time, the 2-day class. I was like, yeah, come through, and then you took the class, right?
Yep.
And what did you think of the class, by the way? Like, you knew a little bit about Amazon before, and you know what I was doing, but you didn't know the ranking and the product selection. Do you feel like the class was clear? Like, did you get a better sense?
Everything you need.
Right.
I mean, going into that class, not knowing, like, I knew what you were doing, but I didn't know the ins and outs and details and the software and all of that. I didn't know any of that, really.
Yeah.
You learn everything you need to know to start your business. Like you in theory would not need to learn anything. Like with the class, you wouldn't need to learn anything else. You have everything you need to start the business.
Right. So
all the tools, all the support.
So after the class, you took the class, the 2-day class, FBA master class, took the 2-day class. So that was part 1 of you sharing your story. Let's talk about part 2 now, which is the ins and out of like how'd you do it, right? Like a lot of people listening right now, they're like, dude, like 8 months, 100K, how much money did you start with? What was your first product? Like how much money did you, like how did you launch your first product? How'd you get the ball rolling? Did you incorporate a company? Like all that type of stuff, right? So let's talk about maybe in a very chronological order, like what did you do right after the class? What was the first step?
For sure. So when I actually took the class right before, like it was a weird sign. I took the class right before I got fired. Right. So I didn't actually take the class as a result of me getting fired. I took the class beforehand, and I was starting to think about maybe doing Amazon on the side. I had finally kind of made the decision, but not really. And then when I got fired at the end of May, I realized that I needed to put my ass in gear, really, because I didn't have an income, right? So I needed to make something.
You went from like making like
200,
like 200K a year to like 0. You're like, what the like? You have a mortgage.
I have a mortgage.
You have car payments.
I have a boat that I thought I could afford.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's
a lot.
Got a girlfriend.
I got a girlfriend. That's the most expensive part, of course, right?
Sorry, Libby.
Yeah, right. So a lot of different things that that I need. I have a big nut to crack every month, right? So I instinctually I actually went and looked for other jobs, and when I realized that it was hard for me to replace that income. Like I could find another job, but to replace that income, I started to realize that I didn't want to take a step back in my career and do a job that I wasn't passionate about or X, Y, Z. So that was my motivator to really start this business. And the first thing that I did was I started using Viral Launch to look at product ideas and to identify an area of opportunity.
What were you looking for? How were you identifying those opportunities?
So specifically, I was looking for a product that wasn't too expensive. I didn't want to, on my first product, I didn't want to, you're always going to make mistakes.
Right.
Even if you're perfect, you're going to make mistakes in this business.
Right.
I didn't want to learn my mistakes on an expensive product. Right. You
Smart.
You don't buy your kid a $50,000 car to learn how to drive on.
Right.
I mean, some people do, but you don't, right? You buy him a beater because you know he's probably going to bang it, or he or she is going to bang it up. So I looked for an inexpensive product, and I found one that was about $2 per unit, and I could retail it for about 11 or 12 bucks, right? That was the first product, and I ordered, I believe my first order was, I think it was 1,200 units.
Right. So 1,200 times 2, like 2,500 bucks.
2,500.
Is that US?
That was USD.
USD. So 3,000 Canadian.
Yeah. Light product, small, easy to ship.
What was about that product that, other than the fact that it's cheap? I mean, you could have found clothing pins for even cheaper, but like, other than the fact that it was cheap, it's small. What else about that product that you felt like, hey, like this, I could do something with this?
For sure. So there was demand, right? There was a lot of demand on Viral Launch. There were a lot of different variations that I could launch within that product. Even if it was the same type of variation, there were a lot of different packs that I could offer. So I knew that if I was successful with that product, because there was good demand, the competition wasn't too strong.
Right. Low reviews.
Yeah, low reviews.
Right.
I knew that I could enter that market, that category, and dominate. And then I knew that if I was successful, then I could take that one product and I could branch out with it. It had that opportunity because of the type of product it was.
So how did you find it? Were you literally just going on Viral Launch all day and just like clicking next, and just like doing the product validation? Or like how did you come across the product idea? Through
Hours,
Viral Launch?
Viral Launch. Hours and hours of product research on Viral Launch, looking at, putting in different filters on the product discovery, and just hours of looking through different products and testing and finding one keyword and thinking maybe this is interesting, clicking into it, and then validating it, sending it to you.
I have to tell you guys a very funny story, actually. So this product, I actually sourced this product about a year ago, and we got samples, and for some reason, I don't know what the reason was. Maybe I was busy, I was distracted, whatever it was. It's been sitting in the den in my closet for the past year. And it was just sitting there. And then Dan took it and basically now making crap loads of money with it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, I had like $1 million sitting in that closet this whole entire time.
And I hear about it almost every day.
Oh man, it's pretty funny. It's the exact same product. So, but anyway, so you found the product, you identified the opportunity.
Yeah.
And what did you do next?
So what I did was I went on Alibaba and I started my sourcing process. And that the first time around, it's definitely gotten easier. The first time around was a pain. There's so many different suppliers. You don't know, they quote your price. You don't know exactly what that price includes. You don't know how that you know, whether the price is EXW, which is factory price, or you have to learn all these things, right? You got to learn if it's EXW, factory price, FOB, whether it's delivered to the port for you, whether it's DDP, is it delivered to the Amazon warehouse for you, duties paid or unpaid. All of these things factor into the learning process. So finding a supplier the first time around was tough. But what I did was I found 3 suppliers that matched my criteria and that were able to achieve my margins, and I ordered samples. The samples came, I picked the best product, and then I told that supplier, like I knew that that was a product I wanted to go with, and I told that supplier that I had received other samples that were exactly like his, even though I hadn't, and I went for another bump on the price. And I said, look, I ordered your product because I thought it was going to be superior, but it's not. It's the same, even though it wasn't. But, right? I hope my supplier's not listening.
Yeah, like, it sounds like, I recognize that name.
I recognize, right? I hope my supplier's not listening, but everyone else is a great tip.
Yeah.
And then, I went for an additional bump on the price. I got it. Not the full amount, but I got an additional bump. And now I'm selling thousands and thousands of units of that product. So that little bump in price saving me thousands of dollars. So then once I picked the supplier, I placed my order. It took about maybe 3 weeks to complete. So the lead time the first time around was about 20 days. And then I spoke to the freight forwarders, shipping company that you suggest, and organized my shipping, and it was
off to the races.
Off to the races, yeah.
So, okay. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, you got your products to Amazon. You saying, hey, it's live on Amazon now. Like, what did you do after that? Because no one's going to find your product on page 100.
For sure.
How did you get exposure? How did you start getting sales? How did you start kind of cracking the code of Amazon's ranking?
Yeah. I mean, at the time, you had, well, even now, you had your rank and bank process, and it's bulletproof. It's worked for every single one of my products to date. I used it on my first product. I definitely learned some mistakes. There was learned through some mistakes. There was definitely a bit of a learning curve, learning how to put together the ManyChat flow and whatnot, and Facebook ads and all that, right?
Yeah.
But once I figured all of that out, it was pretty straightforward and really easy to replicate on product 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 10, and right. The first time around, it's the biggest hurdle. So one piece of advice that I want to give to those students of yours, or you know, guests, whoever's listening, don't quit, because there were moments when I was like, this is like, am I going to be able to do this? And I'm a reasonably tech savvy guy, but there were moments when you get stuck and you just want someone to come in and help you and fix it, right? But if I had quit, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I would imagine that there's definitely people out there that enter this business and they run into all of these different hurdles, whether it's tech, whether it's sourcing, talking to suppliers. If you're talking to a supplier, you're trying to get quotes. You can't talk to suppliers for 30 minutes today and then 30 minutes tomorrow. It's got to be like a chunk of time in let's say a week, where you're gonna have some late nights talking to China because they're opposite time, and you're just gonna get it done, right? So I think that the biggest thing in this business is just regardless of what it throws you, just
keep going.
Just crash through those brick walls, and and you will see success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's proven. It's like a system. It's like, if you go to the Grouse Grind, which is for those who are international, not from Vancouver, it's like a local mountain. It's like there's steps that you have to walk towards up the mountain.
Yeah.
And if you just take one step at a time, eventually you will get there. You will get to the top. But there's a lot of people that, number one, they don't even take the first step. They're like, oh, I will never get up there.
Yeah.
And number two is they get up to like a quarter, half, even 3/4, or even worse, 90% there. They're like, I'm too tired. I want to quit.
For sure.
But if you just take one step at a time, like, it's a step, it's a system. It's literally steps. I I don't know. I believe.
An interesting point on that actually is the grouse grind. You're not, after a certain point, you're not allowed to turn around. You're not allowed to go down.
Oh, interesting.
I believe so. I'm almost certain of that.
But people go down all the time.
You're not allowed to.
Oh, interesting.
I think you can get to a certain point, and then because it gets too steep, and they don't want that liability.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't want people to go down. They want you to walk up and then take the tram down. Yeah, take the gondola down. So think of Amazon in the same way.
Yeah.
Like once you hit a certain point, you're committed.
Right.
Like I think once you've taken your course, you're committed. Like don't let anything get in your way and make it happen, because
most of the time the stuff that gets in our way is ourselves. It's nothing else. Yeah. It's like you are getting in front of your own way.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, that's a talk for a different time. So a couple more questions, and then I want to answer. You got a lot of questions here, actually. So, you launched your first product. Do you remember how much you did the first month?
So, oh man, I should have pulled these numbers for you.
It's okay, but like roughly, like 5K, 4K,
probably my first product, 5K, somewhere in there, the first month.
So when did you start launching like more products?
I had already begun ordering. So what I did was when my first product went live, it was July 25th. That was my first sale. And
so May you took the class at the end of April.
At the end of April.
And then your first sale came July 25th.
July 25th.
So that's about
May, June, July. Yeah, so like pretty quick.
Right, very fast.
2.5 months. What is that? Right?
Yeah, something like that. Whatever.
Yeah. May, June, July. Yeah. 2.5 months. Almost 3. But yeah, so it went live, and then as soon as I saw that product was gaining a bit of traction, I went to my supplier and I said, hey, I'm going to launch 2 or 3 more of these. And
like variations.
But what I did, what I thought would be a better strategy was, instead of launching variations in the sense that they're under the same listing, I launched them as separate listings so that I could dominate that category better and have 2 of my listings side by side and give that customer the option to buy mine or buy mine.
Yeah,
right?
Cannibalizing your own sales.
Yeah, exactly. But then I can take a bigger bite out of the pie. So that was my strategy. And I did that. I probably placed that second order for, I believe it was 3 or 4 other variations within that same product, maybe 2 weeks after my launch of my first one. So it was probably mid-August. Right. And then I had a bunch of products go live in September. Those products.
Yeah.
Right?
So so I guess this is a good transition for us to kind of talk about, basically you just rinse and repeat. It was nothing like, there was no magic. It was just like, okay, this product is doing 10K a month, 20K a month, 30K a month. This works. Let me launch more products. Where do you want to take this business to? Like what? Because a lot of people, you have a really good paying job, so that allows you, and you have a lot of savings. That allows you to actually launch more products, because launching products is quite an expensive process, depending on whatever. But what is your goal? Like, where do you want this business to be? Right now, you're just doing 100K a month. Do you want to do 200, 300? Like, what is there a goal that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a set goal. I just want to keep growing it. And for the foreseeable future, you're right, it is a very cash intensive business, right? And you can't really grow it unless you're reinvesting your profits. Right. So I invested X amount of dollars to start the business, and I said, okay, I'm not going to invest any more of my own money, but I'm reinvesting the majority of my profits back into the business to grow it. So I think I'll keep doing that for the foreseeable future and just see where I can get it to until I'm really uncomfortable, right? Because not being able to pull money out, like I'm pulling out enough money to support a decent lifestyle, but I'm not reaping the rewards of what I could be.
If you said, I don't want to launch any more products, right? Just as a ballpark, like if you say I'm gonna stop launching products and I want to just start reaping the rewards, how much are we talking about here? Because we're doing 100K a month in revenue. Obviously, we all know that's the top line. But let's say you stop reinvesting all your profit just to keep what you currently have, and start reaping the rewards. Like, how much would you be getting paid from Amazon every single month?
It'd be good. Good.
How much, like roughly?
US or Canadian?
Well, 100K US is your revenue.
Sure, yeah.
So let's just stay with US. 30K US, which is like 40K Canadian.
Roughly.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's good. It's a good lifestyle. It's nothing to, it's nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing that.
Right. You want to do more.
I want to. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Why would I stop?
Right.
What could I do with that money?
Right.
That could be better than reinvesting it into my own business myself.
And grow it more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. Yeah, let's answer some questions. So that's the end of part 2. I have a lot of questions here from people that wanna ask you a few questions. I got the first one is in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. Let's see here. How many manufacturers did they go through until they chose the right winner? So I think you answered that. You picked 3 right off the top.
Yeah, I would pick 3 for most of my products. I will say, I know this is kind of unconventional, but there are some products that are pretty straightforward. And if you tell the manufacturer, this is one thing I'll say that will really help those who are starting out in this business, and those that may have been doing this business for a while. It'll really help you cut down your sourcing process. And what that is become an expert at whatever you're planning to sell. So understand whatever product you want to sell, if it's this mug, you should understand how this mug is made, what it's made out of, what materials go into it, how many times this paint is glazed, the interior of it, everything there is to know about this ceramic mug. You should be an expert, because what that will do for you is now you can approach those manufacturers and they know they're dealing with an expert versus just some,
hey, I want to sell cups.
Yeah, I want to sell. I want to buy 1,000 cups. Like, you should know exactly how many ounces this is, or how many milliliters this is, how big this handle is. Whatever metrics there are to define the production of this cup, you should understand that inside and out. Because A, manufacturers will take you more seriously, and B, you'll get a better price, and C, you'll actually cut down that process. You'll cut down the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a great question. Now, there's a few questions in here that have already been answered, such as like, what factors should we consider besides high demand and low competition? We talked about that already, so I'm not going to answer those. Someone says, hi, let me know if you're looking to buy, sell, or lease residential or commercial real estate. That's respect the hustle.
Yeah.
Not interested at the moment. But another question we have here is from Anna Austin Nova. What was the biggest challenge and how you overcame it?
Okay, so the biggest challenge for me was, it's a lonely business. I went from working in an office with a team. I had probably 15 people working with me, and then whole other department. And every day you have these relationships at the office, and you're going into a workplace. Whereas with this business, I'm a pretty social guy, and it was tough. It was mentally tough. But the way that I dealt with it was I just poured that frustration is not the right word, but I poured that loneliness right into my business. And came to the office here, worked with Tom, and yeah, I tried to stay as social as possible. Went to coffee shops. The Discord group is fantastic way to find support and have your questions answered and help others. And so I would say that was the biggest change for me, the biggest struggle that I dealt with. Also, I went from making an income to not making an income, so really cutting back on my lifestyle. I've really sacrificed a lot of my lifestyle over the last 8 months.
No more popping bottles at the clubs for
No more popping bottles.
No more luxury cars.
Not yet.
Okay, cool. So Seems like it's like a lot of like internal challenges, just like you versus yourself, like we kind of talked about before.
Everything else you like manufacturers, you run into shipping problems, you run into whatever, just deal with it.
Yeah. So let's see what else we have here. A lot of people are asking about your like starting budget. A lot of people are asking about your initial like starting budget, how much money like you keep putting into the business.
Yep.
Share as much as you're comfortable.
Sure.
Because how many like I think the first thing is how many products do you have right now? A lot of people are asking that.
I've got 12 right now.
12 products.
And not all of them are doing, big numbers. A few of them are doing quite well. Most of them are doing well.
Right.
And then a few of them are doing okay. Like nothing's tanking. I'm not losing money on it. Touch wood. I'm not losing money on anything. But I've reordered every single one of my products. So that's saying something, right?
So Egyptian prescription Elias Mina, the PPC guy.
Yeah.
How did you manage your cash flow then if you're growing so quickly?
So I did have to, I put up some capital. I initially, I could have achieved, maybe not what I have achieved, but I could have achieved the first stage. If I didn't launch any more products after, let's say 4 or 5, I could have probably done that with about 30,000-40,000 USD.
Okay.
Right, somewhere in there. But one thing I will say is that if you are on a limited budget, I don't suggest going that hard,
right,
because it does get a little sticky, right? Like you do run into points where you're like, oh, am I gonna put another 20K into this business? So it's definitely, it requires some capital, but you can do it. Just it'll be slower growth.
Right.
Right.
Egyptian prescription Elias, I got one more question here, is what would they have done differently? What's one thing you would have done differently now looking back with everything that you know? What's one thing that we have done differently?
Interesting. That's a great question. I think about that.
You want to come back to that?
Yeah. Let me give that a little bit of thought.
Okay. I think I know what I would
have done it sooner.
Well, that too.
I would have started the business
but
sooner.
But I think when it comes to like your product selection, like we talked about this many times.
Yeah.
Like you like to go for like base hits, which hey, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But like I've said, it takes the same amount of time to launch a product that could potentially make you 50K versus 5K. Same,
sure.
Like it's literally the same thing.
For sure.
Maybe one has more capital, the other one
sure.
doesn't. Maybe that's one thing that I don't know. Like later, I'm gonna interview Robert, who's like doing 130 with like 2 products, I think.
Yeah.
So
For sure. Yeah.
But
he's smarter. He's working. I'm working harder.
Yeah.
He's working smarter.
maybe that's one thing you would change going back. Maybe.
That's a strategy that I'm trying to implement right now.
Right. Yeah. So you're definitely switching. You're launching like more competitive products with more upside.
Definitely more capital involvement, but yeah.
Because some products,
upside.
like you have to understand, every single product cannot do 100K a month. Like there's only limited amount of upside for each product. So I think how you can find the number out is just by looking at competitors, their top ones, like how much are they doing. So that's probably like the ceiling. So if your top competitor is doing 10K a month, you can't be doing like 50K a month. It just doesn't make any sense.
For sure.
So finding products that can do a little bit more. But at the same time, I will say products that have a higher upside also have higher competition, which requires more capital. So there's nothing wrong with base hits right off the bat to learn the game. Like what you said about the advice about you starting off with very small amount of budget, like great advice, right?
Definitely. So. I would suggest that to most people because, we do know some people that did enter this business, and like you got to understand it's a business. Not every single business is going to be not every product is going to be successul.
Yeah.
So if you put all your eggs in one basket and you go gung ho out of the gate, and you can only afford to take that one shot, you invest in like a $30,000-$40,000 product out of the gate, and it isn't successful. Now you're hurt.
Right.
So I would suggest for your first product, invest in a product which you could launch 3 times. Because if your first product is not successful, you want to be able to fire that second bullet and that third bullet. So don't restrict yourself.
Absolutely. Cool. I think that's all the good questions that we have. I mean, some questions are just like, do you need to be an expert in in the computer? The answer is no.
Definitely not. I'm not.
And even if you do, learn it. Like,
Yeah.
don't let that be an excuse for you to be like, oh, I can't do it because I need to be an expert in this.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyway, there's no easy cherry that you can pick. So
sure.
cool. I mean, I'm gonna wrap this up. It's been a great interview. I really hope you guys are enjoying this. If you're listening, I'm probably gonna put this on. Well, I'm gonna put this on the podcast, the Tom Wang Show on YouTube, and all that type of stuff. So. Dan, is there any last words that you want to tell people? Maybe words of encouragement, maybe something you want to tell your younger self or anybody who haven't taken action, that haven't started yet. What would you say to them?
What I would say is that don't let comfort in your life be a reason to not grow. I think that was certainly my worst enemy in my early 20s. And yeah, sure, working in the car industry helped to position me, financially in a good way. I was able to buy a condo and I was able to do a lot of fun things in my early 20s. But I would pay anything to have that time back and invest in myself rather than make someone else's dreams come true. Right? When you're working for someone, you're making someone else's dreams come true. Even if you're making a lot of money, you're making someone else a hell of a lot. If you're making a lot of money, you're making someone else a hell of a lot more.
I saw this quote. It was so funny. It was like an employee went to work and the boss got a new Lamborghini, and the employee is like, "Wow, that's an amazing Lamborghini." And the boss said,
"You paid for it."
The boss said, "Hey, I know. And if you work harder this year, I can get another one next year."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so true.
Right?
It's so true.
Right. So that's my biggest piece of advice. It's just believe in yourself. Your 20s, even your 30s, any time in your life, if you haven't done it, any time to invest in yourself is better than in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Now is the time.
Yeah, take your shot, right? Because if you're not going to invest in yourself, no one's going to invest in you. Right?
Yeah.
If you're not willing to invest in yourself and take a risk, and Amazon really isn't that big of a risk. It really isn't.
There's not a lot of businesses you can start with $3,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you name me a couple, I can. And grow into such a big business. Of course, you put more money in down the road.
Yeah.
But that depends on your goals. Like, you're definitely going balls to the walls, and I've kind of said it's like maybe you should slow down a little bit. A lot of money in the business, but hey, you got to do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Well, hey.
Thank you.
Honor to call you one of my best friends. Honor to call you Amazon guru, student, mentee,
appreciate
whatever it is.
Appreciate
and
great, best teacher.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see where 2020 has in store for all of us. And yeah.
Big goals.
Big goals.
Big goals.
Big
Tom.
goals, big dreams. Let's
Big
get
goals.
it. So
Thank
guys,
you.
if you guys have watched at the end of this interview, let me know in the comment section what you think of it. If you want me to do more of these, if you want to get more of my students up here, I can talk to them and get them to share their story. Because a lot of times I'm just like blah, blah, blah about my life. But then they're like, Tom's not relatable, even though I'm pretty relatable. Like I didn't come with anything, but if you want to hear other people's stories and so on and so forth, just let me know. If you're listening to this, I would really, really appreciate it if you can take 5 seconds of your time to leave me a review on iTunes or Spotify. That would mean a lot to me. If you want to follow me on Instagram, feel free to do that. Feel free to follow me on YouTube, just my name, Tom Wang. Other than that, this is the end of this episode. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you guys in the very next one.